Welcome to this explainer. I'm joining you from the LiberaAIVault, and today we're diving straight into a concept that literally underpins everything we do. For thousands of years, human civilization has been built around one incredibly powerful, undeniable idea: scarcity. It's simple, right? When something is scarce, it naturally has value. When producing a good or a service requires actual blood, sweat, and tears, significant human effort, it carries a price. And when absolutely everything around us has a price tag, money just kind of becomes the underlying language of our entire civilization. Now, for centuries, that system made perfect sense. But today, we're going to explore a massive shift that challenges the very foundation of how we live, how we work, and how we organize our societies.
I want to invite you to imagine a totally different reality with me. Keep this one central question in your mind as we go through this. What happens when abundance becomes a technological consequence rather than an economic exception? Now, we aren't here today to debate things like universal basic income. We're actually looking at something much deeper. See, when human effort strictly dictates the price of things, money acts as our primary tool of translation. But artificial intelligence, robotics, and autonomous production, they're threatening to change not just how we work, but honestly, why money even exists in the first place.
To understand exactly where we're going, let's step back into the past for a moment with Section 1, Why Money Was Born. It's really vital to recognize that money was never our ultimate goal. It was just a necessary solution. Essentially, money is a historical language we've used to coordinate scarce resources and human effort. A shiny piece of gold or a crisp paper bill doesn't have any inherent magical value, right? But when food, shelter, energy are strictly limited, society desperately needs a reliable way to exchange value fairly. Our ancestors faced a pretty brutal problem where time, labor, and knowledge were bound by absolute hard limits. They needed a system of coordination just to survive. For millennia, every single economy on Earth was shaped by this one old assumption: resources are limited and production is expensive. Human labor was absolutely essential to create any kind of value. But as you probably know, history has a profound habit of changing overnight when its oldest assumptions break, and we are actively transitioning out of that era right now. So as we look at the catalyst of this change, we have to ask ourselves again, what happens when abundance becomes a technological consequence rather than an economic exception?
That brings us perfectly to Section 2, the end of limits.
We often hear artificial intelligence described as just a software upgrade, a neat new tool, but consider the profound capabilities machines actually possess today. They can design, they write, they program, diagnose, and create. And increasingly, robotics are learning to build our physical worlds completely autonomously. We're literally talking about factories operating with virtually no human intervention and agriculture driven entirely by smart automation. For the very first time in human history, intelligence itself is becoming infinitely scalable. And because of this incredibly scalable intelligence, the cost of producing knowledge, services, and physical goods is moving closer and closer to zero. This isn't because our planet's raw materials have suddenly become infinite. No, it's because the intelligence required to extract and assemble them is now abundant. Economic growth is finally detaching from the old constraints of scarcity, which, of course, leads us right back to our core thought. What happens to a financial system built entirely on scarcity when abundance becomes a technological consequence rather than an economic exception? Let's explore that in Section 3, when abundance meets deflation. For decades, our historical economic fear has been inflation, right? Currencies losing their power, prices just rising relentlessly every single year. But we're entering a totally different era, an era of technological deflation. Imagine AI and autonomous factories producing goods faster than we can even consume them. Think about how the internet made transmitting a gigabyte of data practically free, or how the cost of solar energy has completely plummeted over the last decade. Automation will naturally drive down the costs of food, transportation, construction, and healthcare in the exact same way. This isn't some sort of economic collapse, it's a massive expansion of abundance. Because technology is creating supply faster than demand can actually absorb it, the fundamental rules are changing under our feet. When abundance becomes a technological consequence rather than an economic exception, we have to shift away from asking, how do we produce more, to a totally new question: what remains scarce? If value is no longer primarily driven by how hard it is to produce a physical item, we are practically forced to rethink where the future of our economy truly lies. Which leads us to Section 4, what will remain scarce?
Here's the thing. Scarcity doesn't just magically vanish in an abundant world. It merely migrates toward what machines absolutely cannot manufacture: trust, identity, authenticity, your reputation, human relationships, energy, time, and ownership. Think about it. In a world where a machine can generate a flawless, photorealistic video of you in seconds, knowing who is real and who you can actually trust becomes the ultimate premium. These profoundly human elements are the true coordinative resources that will define the entire value system of our next economy.
And this is exactly where our technological tools converge. Blockchain isn't just about volatile cryptocurrency speculation. It is, at its core, programmable digital trust. It's the actual infrastructure for an abundant civilization. It allows billions of humans and artificial intelligences to coordinate through shared rules rather than relying on centralized control. In a world of absolute technological abundance, this becomes the invisible layer that organizes our trust and enables native, verifiable ownership on the internet. Let's wrap this up with Section 5, Building an Abundant Future.
Every generation inherits an economic system, but very, very few actually have the opportunity to redefine one. As we stand at this precipice, I want you to remember this idea. Wealth may no longer be measured only by what we own. It may be measured by what we can build together. AI, robotics, and blockchain are not isolated trends. They are deeply interconnected tools, transitioning us away from just accumulating scarce money and moving us toward organizing abundance. The concept of money might not disappear entirely, for sure, but it simply stops being the absolute center of our human system.
Years from now, this era won't just be remembered as the moment our AI got smart. It will be the moment we finally stopped asking, how do we produce more, and began asking the defining question of our generation. How do we organize a world where abundance has become a technological consequence rather than an economic exception? The future belongs entirely to those who understand how to build the infrastructure for this new civilization. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today from the LiberaAIVault. Keep asking the big questions.